Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, citizens of all ages, welcome back to another edition of Star Citizen 3.3 Live. That is right. We are, about a third of the way through November, and 3.3 has finally gone live. Good news about 3.3 going live is now 3.3.5 is now in Evocati's hands, and, well, I got a sneak peek. So, as I'm sure most of you are probably aware, at least if you lurk around the Discord, I have a couple of ETF sources. One of my buddies actually let me see 3.3.5 for a couple of hours. And Hurston is awesome. It is so big. I have a couple of gripes about Lorville, which I'll get to in a second. I also got a chance to see Aberdeen, one of Hurston's moons. And Aberdeen is actually really cool. It's got this really neat, like, green hue, very kind of acidic looking. There's, like, green and yellow stuff all over the place, some dead tree-looking things. It's really freaking cool. But back to Hurston, and Lorville in particular. Now, I got some gripes. If you've been paying attention to the roadmap, you will know... actually, if you've been paying attention to the roadmap and or saw Citzien Con... Why is that floating? Anyway, if you saw Citzien Con and looked at the roadmap, you will know that... no-fly zones are now a thing. I don't like them. I don't like them at all. So, the way no-fly zones work, from what I saw, you're basically going to see a red, hazy outline as you approach the no-fly zones. If you enter the no-fly zones, if you're in it for more than like 3 or 5 seconds, you fucking explode. You just pop. Conversely, along those lines, if you locate a body of water on Hurston and attempt to submerge your ship, you will also explode. Which, I mean, I guess kind of makes sense, you know, water getting into the electronics and whatnot, causing, you know, disastrous, catastrophic destabilization of fuel cells or some crazy bullshit. I don't know. But the no-fly zone thing, I do not like. It's especially difficult trying to find where you can fly into Lorville. Well, maybe not especially difficult, but it definitely makes it a pain in the ass. There were a couple of workarounds to that, sort of. When I was wow, words are hard, brain damage. When I was watching some of the footage, if you try to fly into the city, you can only fly into certain areas, like around Tisa Airport, or Tessa, or whatever, however it's pronounced. But there was a big landing issue where ships weren't despawning, so ATC was constantly jammed up and all this other happy horseshit. So basically, the workaround was flying along the perimeter of Lorville, finding a gate, which is a little difficult to discern from the regular architecture. You can kind of tell because there's this big tower with a singular bluish light on it. But it's kind of a pain in the ass, because you have to walk quite a distance from where the no-fly zone perimeter is to where the gate is. Then you gotta take the train into the city, and when all was said and done, by the time he landed at the gate, got on the train, and got into Lorville, district, we are 16 kilometers away from the initial ship. So it took quite a while just to get from outside to inside of the city. However, and this is a big however, Hurston is actually really cool. We went to that bar. I think it's like M&V or W&V bar, something like that. Got a whiskey, and sure as shit, the liquid physics are there. You know, you can kind of tip the glass, and you can see the liquid tip, and the ice cube bounces around. It's actually kind of neat. The Lorville guards, though, oof, they ain't nothing to fuck with. They do not take shit. I actually saw them gang up on a couple of citizens who I assume were probably criminals. So that was entertaining because, as you may know, Lorville is an armistice zone. So you're basically, it's like the guards are like shooting fish in a barrel, and you're the fish, and Lorville's the barrel. But it was actually kind of neat, I'm not gonna lie. A couple other really neat things. So, in 3.3 Live, as you may or may not be aware, to travel to Hurston's placeholder takes approximately 10,000 quantum fuel. However, in 3.3.5, rest assured, it is significantly less. When we flew to Hurston in a Gladius, it only took about 347 quantum fuel. So it's a safe bet that in its current form, most, if not every ship will be able to make it to Hurston in a single jump. Now that's not to say there aren't rest stops. The CRU L2 is on, and there's another one in or around Hurston's vicinity that you can also visit. And sure as shit, it has a different internal layout, which is kind of nice. But there was a staircase that led to literally nothing. Like, it just led you up to a to like a landing. Not like a landing pad, but like a balcony, an internal balcony. So I hope that they change that and they add something for that staircase to go to. But all in all, pretty fucking sweet. Very similar as the CRU L2 rest stop. Different configuration, like I said. But it's really nice to see these different locations. It really adds a lot more flavor to the game and to traveling. What else? The new Hurston clothing is kind of neat. So now everybody can do what their mother told them not to do and put a plastic bag over their head. It's so weird, but I get why, because the air quality is kind of poor. It is breathable. Hurston does have a breathable atmosphere, but it's very unhealthy. I don't think the player actually accrues any negative effects on them. To be honest, I never took my helmet off, but you can. Some of the armor sets actually have like the mouth and nose area open or exposed. The Hurston armors also look really neat. There's a couple of the dust-up armors that they have that have red accents. It looks really sweet. I wasn't able to find any to purchase, but it looked really, really neat. I kind of like that. I hope they open that up and make it so that people can purchase that. Got a couple of weapon shops as well. Well, a weapon shop, if I recall correctly. The trains, I think the trains take a little bit too long. There was at one point where I waited like almost 5 minutes for a single train to come and bring us to the city. Also ran into Clovis Darneely over at the reclamation area. Holy shit. Now, his dialogue is not in. You can walk up and talk to him. His animations are fucking crisp. Like, holy shit, he looks like a real elderly guy. Like, his mannerisms, the way he moves, it's so smooth. But he doesn't give missions, and he doesn't verbally speak yet. He doesn't audibly speak. You can see he's going through the motions. Speaking of smooth, you might be asking, hey Will, what's the performance like in Hurston, in Lorville? Well, kind of a mixed bag. I will say, though, for an ETF patch, surprisingly stable. We didn't have a single crash during the entire couple hours that we were playing in Lorville and in or around Hurston and its moons. I'm fucking surprised as shit. In a good way. Now, performance-wise, as a whole, when you are above and entering Atmo of Hurston, you're in around the 30 to 40 mark. Once you break through Atmo and come down to the ground, closer to like the 20-30 mark. And then when you enter Lorville, same. You're in about the 15 to 30 FPS range, depending on what's around you, what's going on, how many people are, meandering about. But all in all, it's actually, again, surprisingly good. They definitely need to implement a little bit more performance optimization, but it definitely seems like it's viable. And again, from what we saw, I feel relatively safe to say we might, now take this with a grain of salt, actually take this with a whole shaker of salt, we might be getting it into wider PTU, possibly within a week or two. That's how decent, at least for us, Hurston and 3.3.5 as a whole was running. It actually gives me a lot of hope. And aside from a couple of gripes that I have that I really hope that they fix, but I'm not holding my breath, Hurston's going to turn out freaking awesome. Hell, it's already freaking awesome. In my opinion, the only real detraction from Hurston and Lorville are these really annoying no-fly zones. I really hope that they change and edit those a bit, because it is very unforgiving. If you're flying around in an aerodynamic ship where you can kind of fly a bit faster than, something like a brick, like the Aurora, and you accidentally fly into a no-fly zone because you weren't paying attention, you're basically as good as dead, because there's really not a whole lot of time for you to turn around when you're traveling forward at 200, at like around 200 or so. At least that was one of the issues that happened to me, because I was just so in awe of all the surroundings in that big Hurston Dynamics building, which I gotta say is quite a sight to behold. When you first hit Hurston, like its orbit, and if you use a spline to quantum over to Lorville, you can see the fucking building from space. It is quite a marvel. I have to say, SIG really knocked it out of the park. And, it's only going to get better from here, which is something I'm super looking forward to. It's just really, one of the biggest gripes that I have is just those damn no-fly zones. Conversely, because of those no-fly zones, you have to travel quite a fucking distance on foot. It easily took me a couple of minutes just to go from landing on the outskirts just to get to the gate. Now, some people will say that's a good thing because it kind of helps with immersion, but other people would say, oh, it's a little bit too long. I want to get in and see the sights and, see the local people and the culture and all that. The flora looks really cool. There's like these little neat pine tree bush things, and the trees look really cool. There's also some vegetation that you might have seen on Daymar, those little like cactus looking things with they look like tongues next to the cactus. You'll see. You'll see. It shouldn't be too long until this goes to wider PTU. But it's freaking awesome. Now, if you were keeping up with ATV and all that, you will know 3.4 has also changed kind of significantly. Due to the amount of time and effort that they had to put into getting 3.3 and 3.35, some of the items from 3.4 were pushed back, which I don't mind, because I think Hurston is going to be so expansive that is probably going to keep players busy until then. I mean, Hurston is freaking huge. We didn't even get a chance to go around and see all the biomes yet. Like, we really just kind of went to Lorville just to see, you know, the surrounding area. The trains, again, kind of a mixed bag. I mean, they travel nice. The performance is okay. Again, in like that 15 to 30 range, depending. It did take a little bit, once again, to go from, I think it was T Station 1 or T19 into the actual city. But once you get to the city, it's interesting because the city is huge, the main part, but it's nice because there's signage all over. You can still get lost, but for sure, walking around and taking in the sights, and if you pay attention a little bit, you can definitely get around. And although it's a large size, it's actually surprisingly manageable. What do I mean by that? Well, you can surprisingly quite easily find your way around because things are laid out for you in a way where it's pretty easy to find your way around with the signage, and they got kind of lines on the ground, but it's not so in your face that it's like, oh, you know, I don't know how to compare it, but it was actually quite surprising how well the city was laid out and how easy, if you will, for lack of a better term, it was to find your way around. Admittedly, though, I did get lost on my way back trying to find the train station that I took in originally to get back to my ship, but that's not a huge issue. Oh, also, if you do happen to get into 3.35 somehow through Evocati or what have you, I highly suggest that you do not park at a landing pad, because there are a ton of reports of people being stuck there because some of the ASOPs are not working. So, you know, you basically get stranded there. So currently, you really do want to land on the outskirts and, you know, kind of travel in from there. But again, the amount of time it takes, but I mean, you know, what are you going to do? It is a big city. The planet is quite large also. And I so cannot wait for it to go live. Couple more things before I end the video. If you are in 3.3 live, and you try to visit the other non-accessible planets like ArcCorp or Microtech, you're going to be kind of disappointed. What do I mean by that? Well, here I am in my Starfarer Gemini, and it has a butt-ton of fuel. Yes, that is a scientific term. So what I decided to do, accidentally, well, actually, this opportunity just kind of showed up because I was like, holy shit, Microtech, what? I can go there? So my thought process being, ooh, I want to see what the placeholder planet looks like for Microtech. So, of course, I jumped there. Now, one good thing about having these larger ships is that when you're on a 10-15 minute quantum, you can get up and you can walk around. So I highly suggest, if possible, to try to bring a ship that you can kind of walk around in, because when you make that 12-minute flight from Olisar to Hurston in a Gladius, it can get a little boring. So, of course, having a Gemini, I decided to wander around for the entirety of the quantum trip, which was neat. But, yeah, having a singular ship, or a single-seat ship, or a tiny one, or not having anybody, it might get a little boring. It's a good time to maybe do some inventory management, things like that. And right here, you can see the bug where you just fall out of the Starfarer seems to have been fixed. So that's something to celebrate at least. So, finally, after meandering around the Starfarer and eventually going out to what I like to affectionately call the back deck, I arrived. My quantum trip ended, and I decided to excitedly run back to the cockpit. And I was really excited because, you know, we haven't really heard a lot about Microtech. We've seen ArcCorp. ArcCorp and Microtech have a little bit more in common than you might think. And by that, I mean they don't even have placeholder planets, which is a bit of a shame. I would have really liked to at least see a placeholder for them, even if they were, you know, Crusader. Just something there, at least, just to be kind of interesting. Otherwise, you basically fly just to dead space. Other than that, the only other thing is it seems like currently there's a bug where if you do get up during quantum and you come back to your seat, you're basically unable to quantum jump anywhere else. I spent quite a lot of time after this trying to get back to Crusader, but nothing would work. I power cycled, I did all that other happy horse shit to no avail. So eventually, I had to know when I was defeated. Alright, I think I'm going to leave the video here. I've rambled on long enough. Thank you very much for watching. All you beautiful bastards out there, have yourselves a wonderful day, morning, evening, whenever, wherever you just so happen to be. Don't forget to like and subscribe if that's your kind of thing. I hate to whore myself for that. Join the Discord down below if you would like to. And other than that, I will see all y'all in the verse. Love, peace, chicken grease. Bye.